Tech for ID.
Tech for ID.
Tech for ID.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for everyone.
Technology for everyone.
Technology for everyone.
Talk session by Tech for ID, and as usual, Tech for ID is bringing us the best speaker around the world to talk about technology. And today we are already with our incredible and lovely speaker, Mrs. Jillian Godsil. I would love to say hi to her. Hello, Mrs. Jillian.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a real privilege.
Thank you so much for being here. We are so delighted to have you here. So everyone, Mrs. Jillian is the co-founder and also editor-in-chief of blockleaders.io. And today we're going to have a very interesting talk about why blockchain needs women. So yeah, Ms. Jillian, are you ready?
I am. I've got kind of two jokey things which illustrate why I think it's so important. I often joke that if the Lehman Brothers had been the Lehman sisters back in 2008, we mightn't have had the financial crash at all. I mean, because it was just had there been women involved, as we all know, when that crash happened in 2008, the people leading the financial institutions tended all to be the same. They had to be middle-aged, white, men. And it's nothing against middle-aged white men. It's just that when you have everything the same, nobody innovates, nobody spots the problem, nobody thinks there could be something wrong. I mean, people go, we've always done it this way. And it's a perpetuation of things that happened. And when one thing goes wrong, many of things go wrong. And I do genuinely believe, had there been more women in senior positions, something might have been spotted. Something would have been, the brakes might have been put on, and we wouldn't have had the crash. So that
is very interesting, and we are just so curious to talk about this. But before we get further into the talk of this spicy topic, we would love to know you more. So would you please give us a little bit of background of yourself and what you are up to these days?
For sure. I love blockchain. Okay, and that's why I'm passionate. That's why I want women involved. That's why I wanted to succeed, and I want everybody in, right? But why do I love blockchain? Where did this come from? So if I may tell you a little story, it's a bit of a meandering story, but it'll make a lot of sense by the time I finish. So I'm Irish. I grew up in Ireland, and I went to college in Trinity College in Dublin, and I studied history and English. Very happy time. And then I was hard on the milk round. It was when you're hard when you're still a graduate, an undergraduate. And I was hard to go and work for JP Morgan in London. So JP Morgan, big banking institution. And I went there and I worked for 3 years at JP Morgan in London. Loved it. It was amazing. The first 6 months were just training because I was a graduate hire. So I loved it. It was such fun living in London. I bought a flat with my friend. It was just a lot of fun. But I learned after about a year or so, actually, I'd been hired as a systems analyst. And my background was as a humanities student, so a writer. I was a terrible programmer. I was a really, really bad programmer. It took actually nearly the 3 years to realize this. I was in the wrong job. But I love the people, and I love the atmosphere and the environment. I was learning. I wasn't, it wasn't the right fit, as it happens. But then I moved to Australia, and I thought, okay, so I love writing. And I've done, 3 years of working in the heart of the financial district in London, within systems. And I thought, I know a lot about computers. I know I'm a very bad programmer, but sometimes people, when they're not familiar with computers and so they get kind of scared. And I'm going, no, I'm not scared of them. I just can't do them. It's like I could drive a car, but I couldn't fix an engine. I have that sort of familiarity. So I moved into fintech PR at that stage in Sydney. And I was there for 3 years, wonderful time, and then moved to next door to you to Singapore. where I was working for an American PR company, and I was the Asia Pac director for fintech in the region. And so I really enjoyed it. It was very happening. The ASEAN Tiger was in full flow at that stage, so it was an exciting place to be, and it was very, you know, it was a super time. And then, long story, I sort of fast forward, I'm not giving my whole career, whatever. Came back to Ireland. I came back to England, came back to Ireland, and about 14 years ago, so this is like a long time, I was living down the countryside, and I was married, and we had a big house, and I had children, and I thought my life was kind of sorted. I thought, this is it, my life is sorted. And but it wasn't, and I hit recession and bankruptcy at the same time. Now, it's not, I can advise anyone who's watching or listening, do not get divorced in a recession. Really don't. It's not a good plan. If you can time your divorce, if you're going to get divorced, don't do it in a recession. So it was in the middle of this. It was very painful. Divorces always are, but the recession added on to it. And then what happened was, my own little personal story was that we had a big mortgage, big house. My ex went back to the UK and became bankrupt. So he gave all the debt to myself and our 2 children. So that was my own little personal sort of nastiness. And my business collapsed, and bailiff called, you know, all this, that sort of cauldron that you can get involved in. You know, people say you're only one paycheck away from being homeless. I can tell you it's true. You know, it never occurred to me. Maybe it was more than one, but you just go into that spiral, and then things happen. It goes down, down, down. So that was my own little personal story, which was personally painful for me. But at the same time, in the country, we had the Celtic tiger, another tiger, immediately prior to the recession. And so there was a huge amount of churn with people who were failing financially, like me. I wasn't the only one. A lot of people were failing financially. And there was this sort of narrative that somehow people were gaming the system. There's this, you know, the shame associated with failing financially. Shocking, really. And in my little case, I had the big house, big mortgage, and I made a video to sell my big house, beautiful house. And I got a cash offer, but the banks refused consent for me to sell the place. They preferred to repossess it. And the cash offer was like 500,000. So it wasn't a bad offer. And then they sold it for 165,000 the following year. So like I have to go into bankruptcy because I still have all the debt. I didn't lose the debt. My house is gone. My business is gone. Everything is gone. But I was angry. Boy, was I angry, because it wasn't fair what happened to me. And had the banks accepted that offer, I might have been able to scramble my way back to financial solvency. Maybe, I don't know, but I might have. But everything had gone belly up for me. And at the same time, there were people all around the country, especially men, who were taking their own lives because they were failing financially, and they were being told by society it's a shameful thing. Whereas actually failing financially is quite easy. You could lose your job, become sick, get divorced, hit a recession. There's many reasons why people fail financially. And for the most part, people are not lying, thieving, stealing. You know, it's not, people who fail financially, especially in a global recession, they tend not to be, thieves. It's not, because life can go against you like that. So I got very cross, especially all these men were taking their own lives. So I began to rant and rave, basically. So anytime someone put a microphone in front of me, I'd be like going, and then what happened was, when the banks took my home, I was forced into bankruptcy. So I was the first female bankrupt under the new laws in Ireland. I'm now activated. I'm very angry all the time. And I realized that as a bankrupt, I wasn't allowed to run for a public office because we had inherited arcane laws from the UK, which said that if you were bankrupt, again, it was somehow shameful. And it was a shameful thing. So you couldn't possibly run for a public position, like as a TD or an MP or, a member of parliament. And excuse me. So I brought the Irish government to the High Court, and I said that my constitutional rights were being infringed because I wasn't allowed to run for a public office. And there was a bit of a fight, a bit of a flurry, and I went all the way to the Supreme Court. But in the end, they agreed that it was wrong. The law was wrong. So I changed the law. And that was in 2014. And then the next elections that came up, and while I was still bankrupt, was the European parliamentary elections in 2014. So I ran in the European parliamentary elections as an independent against the banks. It was just like, I had to do it. And I had no money. I had nothing. I couldn't afford posters. I did everything on TV or radio. It was all PR and talking and stuff. And two things happened. One was I didn't get elected, but I got 11,500 votes. That's a lot of votes for someone who has no money, no party, and independent. I mean, I was so proud of all those votes. And the other thing that I learned was I'd never run before as a politician, as a candidate, and I possibly will never run again. However, what that experience taught me was that when you put yourself forward for political position, you're attacked at all points, right? You become very, very vulnerable. All your history is taken out and examined. And I really felt towards the end, I earned 11,500 votes. I was so proud of that. Bearing in mind, we're a small little country. We're not a big country, 4 million people in total. But I also went, every vote I got humbled me. But every vote I didn't get equally humbled me, because I thought, why didn't someone not vote for me? What was that about? Did I not tell my story right? Anyway, after all that, my life went very quiet, because when you are a parliamentary candidate, especially for a European one, everybody wants to know, they want to know what your view is on the age of voting, on LGBTQ rights, on gender issues, on sustainability issues, what color knickers you wear in the morning. They want to know everything.
Yes.
And then it all stops. I went, okay. So that was like 2014. I thought, my life is over now. That's it. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. You know, there's something, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I wasn't like suicidal or anything, but I just thought, that's it. That's kind of my life done. and then a year later, I met blockchain. Oh, not a year later, 2 years later, I met blockchain, and I went, oh my God, this is what I was put on the earth for. This is what I need to talk about. And oh, I just the more I heard about blockchain, I went, this is so powerful. This is what this world needs. Because when I was on my ranting and raving trip, I was discovering so much that there was like so many inequalities in this world that I had been blind to. I hadn't seen, because I lived my nice little life. You know, I didn't really see what was going on. And then oftentimes when you're down on your uppers, as they say, when you've nothing's taken away from you, you get clarity, and you go, there's a lot of inequality in this world. And guess what? It's getting worse, because like, you know how is it not Barnardo's? It's the other. I mean, sorry, the charity. I forget the name of the charity now. It does it's Oxfam. Sorry, Oxfam does this report every year at Davos, and it just shows that the people who have nothing are down here. People who have everything are all up here, and it's such inequality in this world. It's getting worse, not better. So, blockchain for me is that thing that can help change the world for the better. So that's a very, very long answer to your question. That's my background.
That is wonderful, because I think you are not only explaining about yourself, but you are also inspiring us at the same time. So thank you so much for sharing your story, because that is wonderful.
But do you know what's wonderful for me is, and when I said I thought my life was over after the election, and it did go very flat, because 1 minute everybody wants a piece of you, and the next minute you're nobody, absolutely nobody. And you know, the other thing that really struck me as well, that as a woman, I'm a woman in my 50s now, women can become invisible, especially when they hit their 50s, because maybe they have children, then they've left the nest. Maybe they're working, maybe they're not. But there's this thing about a man becomes powerful, a woman becomes invisible often, you know.
Wow.
And it's something that until you get there, you won't know about it. It's like until you become a mother, childbirth is kind of like a concept. It's, oh yeah, it's nice, whatever. Or until you run a marathon. I've never run a marathon, but until you have, you don't really understand what it is.
Yeah.
So when I said, now I know what they're talking about. Becoming, and because I tried to get work then, this is before blockchain. And I applied for many, many jobs, and I had like 30 years experience and a bit of activism thrown in, but I have a lot of experience. I couldn't get interviews. And do you know Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, the dancing duo of the 50s, I think, the Hollywood dancing duo, and they were very, very famous. And Ginger Rogers, who was the woman in the dancing partnership, they'd often be complimented on their dancing, and she said, try doing it in high heels and backwards. That's what women do when they do that sort of elaborate ballroom style dancing. It's a different thing. And so the other beautiful thing about blockchain, and there's loads of things about blockchain, but as a woman in my 50s, I'm going, whoa, there's a place for me. I'm not forgotten. I'm not on the scrap heap. I have things to say, and you're listening to me today. I mean, like, this is amazing. So, and that's really important, because also as we live longer, and it's not just women too as well, men need help too as well, we all need help, but women in particular tend to become invisible. And I think it's very powerful for me to say, wow, I'm not invisible today, you know.
Indeed.
I'm here. Wow, this is like exciting. Like, whoo-hoo.
And you are also empowering a lot of women out there by doing this and by doing everything that you are doing right now with wherever that you're doing, like for example with blackleaders.io. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Oh, by the way, for
Yeah.
the audience, so
Yeah.
since this is a live session, if you guys have any questions, any comments, or anything that you want to discuss with Mrs. Jillian, just please drop it on the comments below, because yeah, we will read it for you guys, and also Miss Jillian will gladly answer it for you.
Of course.
All right. So, Ms. Jillian Godsil, would you please give us the general picture of how women are still underrepresented in the tech world, especially in the blockchain industry?
It's unfortunate. There's a couple of things happening. It starts at education. Actually, it starts in the crib. I was at a talk there recently, and somebody said, why are girls put into pink and boys put into blue? You know, there's this sort of, from a very early age, children are pigeonholed, you know, and it's not the kids. The kids have no idea what colors they're wearing. And of course, in this day and age, we have gender fluidity as well. So it's not even a binary decision anymore. And for someone my age, I'm going, this is a new concept, this whole like gender fluidity, but it exists and it's there. It's always been there. It's never been spoken of. So you have this thing where you have babies are being marked out as one sex or the other. And then comes the language. There's a whole bunch of language that comes with that, because I was saying to you before, women, when they get older, men, when they get older, they get gravitas, they get gray hair, they get authority. But if a woman's in a position of authority, they can be like strident, or they can be, you know, seen as bitchy, or you know, leadership. It's not really equated the same way. Anyway, we start off with education. We start off with kids. There's an amazing video on Facebook or YouTube. I can't remember. Maybe you Google it. And there's a study that's done. It's done in a European country, someplace, where they have two kids. They have a section of 3 or 4 groups of kids, 2 kids each one, and they give them a job. And then afterwards, the boy and girl each, they reward them with sweets in a jar. But they give the boy twice as many as the girl. And then they ask the kids, and they're like 8 and 10, whatever. There's the kids, why do you think? And like, some kids are going, why is he getting more? Because they did the same job, right? This is the pay thing, obviously. And then, and in one of the boys gives half his to the girl, which is really sweet. And another video, a girl grabs half of the other one. I'm not having, and it's true. I'm like, why on earth will women be paid less for a job than a man? So that's education. Then you go through schooling, the tech thing, because again, there's that kind of this nerdy thing that it's a boy thing. And anybody can be, and people can be nerdy at times, and you know, playful at times. You don't it doesn't have to be your whole personality, but it's these stereotypes and these terms that are used. So girls perform better than boys oftentimes, and then start to fall off, because it's like girls with sport. Girls fall off at sport too as well. Whatever way that they I don't know. It's like is it makeup or something that they feel as if they have to choose? Was it, you know, you can be a sporty person and wear makeup, but it's just, there's this thing. And then when they get to university, the fall off is even more again, because it's again, what you can see is what you can be. And if it's only, most university classes still have more men than women in them. They're still, but the techie ones. And you know, it's thinking, why is that? Why? Because girls are just as interested in code as boys are. It's that subtle. Do you know what it is? My late father used to say, when you're driving, when he was lecturing me as a young person, he said, when you're driving, if you go a bit off your route, it might only be a couple of inches. By the time you've done several miles, you could be way off route. True. I think what happens is that when kids are being educated, and we don't allow them be what they want to be, and so you start pigeonholing them, and even by innocent words that you might not think of. And gradually, so the girls are going towards this and the boys are going towards that. And it's, rather than, you can mix and match them, and, you know, and likewise too, for men as well, there should be much more men in the caring professions. Men should be much more nurses. We need more physiotherapists, and well, doctors, there are a lot of men in there. But, you know, for the carers themselves, there's no reason why a man can't be as caring. And then another example is, in work. Now, not here, although I think they're starting to bring it in. I think in the Scandinavian countries, if you're a couple with a baby, you have a baby, both parents get equal amount of paternity or maternity, whatever you want to call it, they both get it. And I think they both have to take it. So that forces, whereas before it's very easy, if you're working full time, it's very easy, oh, I must go back to work and not take all your allocation. But I understand in the Scandinavian countries, that is a thing. So, and that also means that if you're an employer and I'm interviewing you and I'm interviewing a lovely young man, the same age, same whatever, in the back of my mind, I'm going, oh, Chandra will be having babies soon. I mightn't, But if you know that the young man is also going to have the same amount of leave, paid leave around the birth of a baby, if he's a parent, it evens the odds of it. You stop seeing people as gender, you see them as who they are and not what they do. And then another problem with women, and this is more when you get to applying for jobs, and I don't know why this is, but it's true. It's in data. We're fighting against it. We're trying to. I've got 2 young daughters, for example, who are grown ladies, and I try to impart to them, to be confident, to be, you can do it, whatever. That's just sort of a can-do thing. But apparently, when women look at a job spec, most women will say, "Oh, I can do 80%, but I can't do the 20%, so I'm not going to apply for it." Whereas most men look at that and they go, "Oh, I can do 80%," and they ignore the other bit. They don't care. They're, I can do it, and they apply for it. So men are much more confident in applying for stuff, and women aren't. And I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not quite sure how to fix the world. But there is definitely a thing, and I think we just need to encourage people, because the thing again, what you can see is what you can be. So if we have women doing things, then you say, "Oh, I could be that too." Same if you have men being a carer. A young boy might say, "Oh, I want to be a carer when I grow up." And if a woman can see, a maths professor being a woman, or a techie, CEO, they can go, "Oh, I can be that too." It's just not so, and let people gravitate to where they want to go to. Obviously, it's not, you're not going to force wrong heads. But so I think it starts early, and I'm not quite sure how to fix it. I think the Scandinavian countries are better in some ways, but I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. It exists.
But yeah, at least knowing that there's a problem that we have to fix, or like we have to work on, I think that's like the start of it.
Yes.
So yeah,
conversation is huge.
Indeed.
Having that conversation, just being aware of it, it's a huge step for whatever results are. It's a huge step forward already.
So your answer is really interesting, right? And it leads to also my next question, right? So how big is the number of women currently who is expert on blockchain technology these days?
Now that I don't know, but actually I've got another thought that you have just triggered in me. I still think the number of people in blockchain, I've heard that it's single digits, so it's 8 or 9% women only, and the rest are men. So it's very, very low. And then, but I read a blog recently by a leading UK woman in tech, and I can't remember her name. She's quite well known. I don't know her. I never met her, and she was saying, "I'm not going to do women in technology anymore." And she said, because 2 reasons. One is that I don't want to be a woman in tech. I want to be a person in tech, which I totally get that. I totally get that. I really get that. However, she made the point is that unless you're coding, you're not in tech. I went, ooh, I don't agree with that at all, because it says the bad coder over here. But it's a lot more than just to be, like, you can be a CFO of a company and not be a qualified accountant. You can be a CEO of a company and not have, I don't know, leadership management degrees under your belt. I don't think for women in tech, and I think it's still an important term we need to use now, for women in tech, you don't need to code. You can be a woman in tech, and you can be a marketeer, a HR, a CEO, a CFO, a CMO, a CDO, a C, whatever, all the C-suite things, but you can be any of those things, because men don't define them. Now, men don't call themselves men in technology, right? So we get that. But if a man is in technology, he doesn't have to qualify it and say, well, I'm a coder or I'm not a coder. That's question is never asked. So while I agree with this lady in that I would like to think in time, the women in tech label will be redundant. Be people in tech. And that's a much better way to look at it. But sometimes you've got to force an issue to make it work. And it's, I think there's a great example, gender quotas in politics. Now that's a big hot issue. And it's a hot issue because here in Ireland, I know that political parties must run a certain number of women, otherwise they don't get the state allocation of funds that they're entitled to. And it raised lots of questions. And you have the men saying, "Oh, I'm discriminated against," and the women saying, "I want to get there on my own bat." and it overlooks two things. One is that if we didn't have the gender quota forcing the issue, it's a very blunt instrument, I have to say, but it would take 400 years before we'd have equal men and women in Parliament. And we need equal men and women in Parliament because guess what? We're 51% of the population, and this is where the lawmaking happens. So we need to be there, right? So
Sure.
400 years, or use a blunt instrument. And then also you support the woman, and also a lot of men are elected who are no better than anybody else. It's only because they happen to be a man, or there's a lot of men elected because they're men, not because they're good. But anyway, if you identify passionate candidates and support them, and that's the big thing too as well, because if you're asking a woman to go forward into an arena where it's still male dominated, you better support her, and that's the interest of everybody, not just for her, so she feels good, her male, colleagues feel good. So that's, I think, a really important thing.
Indeed. So why is it important for women to start diving into the blockchain world?
Because it's so exciting.
I know.
Because I was thinking, a lot of careers are out there, right? And if you're a doctor or a nurse, maybe you're saving lives. That's very exciting. Not my bag. Okay, I'm not medical at all. Or people are doing amazing things. They're inventing and whatever. But blockchain, it's two reasons why women should get in there and jump in there and be brave. You have to be a bit brave, certainly, to get in here. One, it is exciting. It is fast moving. It's just phenomenal. It's one of the spaces. I mean, I've been in fintech pretty much all my life, and I have to say, it's one of the most exciting spaces I've ever been in. In some ways, I can compare it back to the dot-com boom in the 90s, where it was a lot of innovation, tech innovation, and a lot of rethinking the world, unthinking the world. That was very cool. But with blockchain, there's a third element. So it's innovation, rethinking the world, and making the world a better place.
Oof.
And that's the second reason why women need to get into the space, because it's way too important to be left to men alone. And again, I'm not anti-man. Of course I'm not. I'm looking for equality. I was interviewing a young girl last week for a radio show here that I haven't done, and she's only in her 20s, lovely girl. And she's been a feminist since she was very young. And I said, the term feminist is sometimes used in a derogatory fashion nowadays, and people forget how hard people fought to get the vote, and all these things that are. And I said, how do you define being a feminist? And she was very much a feminist. She said, I'm looking for equality, she said, for everybody. I went, yeah, that's 100% right. So, yep. But we need women in there, because women bring, and it's not that, you could say women are empathetic and they're kind and they're caring. Men are all those things too, but it's the mix of men and women. And no more than I was saying earlier about all those stale, pale men in Wall Street. It's not just, it's colors, it's creeds, it's ages, it's genders, it's sexual orientation. For a vibrant world that is inclusive and embracive, and that's going to make a difference, you need all those mixes. So women are just, women and men, that's an easy thing to pick on, right? Because it's no more than maybe in the US in particular, where it's black and white, that there are easy, you're black, you're white, whatever. But for men, women, it's an easy thing, but it heralds in a lot of other inclusiveness and diversity. And that's exciting, because you learn stuff the whole time then.
True. That is very true. And I think, it is not about men versus women, because we want all the diversity in here.
Totally. So, it's not an aggressive thing at all, except it's really aggressive against injustice, that's all, but it's not aggressive, no.
Indeed. So what difference women can bring to the development or use of blockchain technology?
Okay, I'm going to use an example, and I love this example. I stumbled across it recently, and I love this example. Okay, we all know the old story. I think it comes from India, is it? I'm not sure, about the elephant and the 6 wise men in the village. But 6 wise men were all blind, and they'd never seen an elephant. And they said, what is this elephant? And these are the wise men. What is this elephant you speak of? We have never seen it, because they're blind. And so a young boy, and as the story goes, brings them out to a nice quiet elephant in the field. And the first man feels the body, and he goes, oh, it's a wall. Another person feels the legs. Oh, it's a tree, big tree. Another one, the ear, it's a fan, or it's a big, leaf, whatever. And someone feels the tusks, so it's a spear. Anyway, the 6 blind men find different parts of the body of the elephant in this very old story. And this story is used to give an example of perception and how we perceive things, right? And I'd never questioned it until I had a bit of an epiphany about a month ago, and I suddenly thought, what if there were 6 blind, wise women, not men? Do you not think they would have got talking? Do you not think they would have said, well, mine's a bit like a wall, what's yours like? And they would have figured out it was an elephant far sooner. And so that's what women can bring to blockchain. They are collaborative by their very nature, and we talk and communicate. But that collaboration, I think that is a unique thing. And it's not just women, it's women and men, so you have the mix, so you have the collaboration going on. And that's huge. So I think that's why, those 6 wise but blind people would have figured out it was an elephant and what an elephant truly is far sooner if they'd been women than if they'd been only men. Okay.
That is a very, very cool example. It's like an analogy that is, since like blockchain is also still developing, right? So we're going to probably figure out like so many other figures or like whatever that we can do with blockchains. So that is very exciting.
I like my elephant analogy.
And what role could the woman play on blockchain sector based on your observe in your industry?
Do you know what? A lot of things are happening. I think I said the 3 things that for me differentiate blockchain from other technologies. The third thing being making the world a better place. In order to make the world a better place, you have to understand what the problems are. And I often think that women are at the forefront of understanding what problems are, because women tend to have different roles in society. They tend to be more caregivers. We have babies, men don't have babies. And there's a lot of things that go on that when women, I'll give you another example. In developing parts of the country, when developing parts of the world, when you invest in women and educate women, what happens is that the money that goes into the women to educate them, they put like something like 90% of it back into the family and the community, and the whole community rises up. Whereas men tend not to do that. They don't tend to, put all their, it's a different dynamic. So with women, if you have women who can identify some of the problems, and especially when blockchain is so good at figuring out how to, reconstitute what goes on and what always has happened, they're very good at thinking of new ways. So whereas, and I'm being a little bit stereotypical here, and I apologize for that, but the mix, bringing women in, means you have a much more fully functional view of what can happen. And when you want to change things, you want, people to look at all the differences that can be there. And I think that's why women can drive that change in conjunction with men, obviously, but they can drive it. Without women, you'll have the same thinking. It'll be purely, it'll lack that sort of breadth of experience, I think.
Very interesting. So how big is the interest from women in programming sphere?
It is growing. Do you know what there is? And programming, we're a bit late to realize this. Programming is a language like any other. Now, I will say you speak beautiful English. I only speak English. In Ireland, we are very bad at languages. European countries, much better. But it's a language, and we know to learn a language, you need to do it early on, because they say that for a child to become multilingual, put them in a household with several different languages being spoken, they'll pick it up, and they'll be fluent in many languages just by having it heard in the household. Programming and coding is a language, and works in the same way in the brain. So we need to do it earlier. And certainly there's actually a project here that started in Ireland, actually, with James Whelan and Bill Liao, who is an Australian entrepreneur and philanthropist, called Coder Dojo. And it's a project that started here in Ireland, but it's global now. It's amazing. And what it does is it has coding classes for children outside ours in schools. It's all voluntary done. And the dojo element is that they all kind of code together. So you have kids who've been through this program. They've got some of the best apps in the App Store. They're just, because if a child codes, man or woman, boy or girl, sorry, if a child codes, they learn much faster. And then it becomes an instinctive thing, and it's no longer you have to choose. I mean, if you think about it, going to university to do your first bit of coding, that's way too late. We should have kids in primary school doing it. Oh, and by the way, I think kids in primary school should also be taught how to cook. I don't know about in Indonesia. In Ireland, they're not taught how to cook in school. And that would be a very good life skill for boys and girls, cooking in school. Cooking
Yeah,
and coding.
we also have like that cooking in our school before, but yeah, that is very interesting. You actually answered my other questions
Oh
because
dear.
yeah, I was also about to ask about like what do you think like at what age should children be taught of programming, at least like basic programming to help them get inspired to be in it, right? So yeah, so
But,
based on your answer, it's like elementary school, right?
yeah, I think so, because also if you think about it nowadays, the impact of the smartphone and smart technology and social media on people is huge. And you see it with babies who know what a smart, babies can do this to the phone and they're squeezing. And you see babies
Yes.
with magazines trying to squeeze the, the picture.
Yes.
Why is the picture not growing, Mom? You know, they're a 6-month baby. So babies are like sponges. They can absorb all this thing. And technology is such a part of our life, and we need to embrace it and not to be afraid of it. And the sooner we can give people their skills, whether they go on to actually work in that space or not is quite irrelevant. Just the fact that they have these skills. And it obviously helps if there is enough money and your kids are not disadvantaged and there's access to computers and teaching. But the sooner the better, because it's a language, but it's a universal language, not just like English or Spanish, whatever. It's much more powerful.
That's true. So since programming is about computer and language abilities, right? Are there any reason that will make a company not hire a female programmer if she has high programming capabilities, actually?
I think the biggest reason why a woman might not be hired might be her childbearing age. And it's a terrible thing to say. That's why the Scandinavian countries have got it right. But if an employer is looking at 2 candidates, one male, one female, and they're both in, late 20s, early 30s, they're going to say, oh, well, she's going to go off and have babies, which is the wrong way to think about it. But if they are both have to take the maternity leave, paternity, whatever, people, they choose on ability and not on gender. And there's another thing too as well, which I think is quite interesting. Since the pandemic, again, the pandemic is being, apart from the horrible sickness and the toll on the, I'm saying, well, whatever, but it's taught society that people can maybe work not in an office. That's huge. And the biggest problem, that is massive. And the biggest problem for women in their careers is that oftentimes they do take the time off to rear the children or to look after their elderly parents, or there's different women would more likely fall out of the career path to take a caring role. Nothing wrong with that, right? And whether it's men or women, there's nothing wrong with that, whichever suits the people. But it's for employers to recognize that just because somebody is not in the office doesn't mean they can't do a job. And that this pandemic has been massive for opening people's eyes to go, oh, I can work from home, I can work remotely. I'm here in Ireland, you're in Jakarta. It's like we're having a conversation. Technology is amazing, and it's
That's
just,
true.
but it opens up the doors to them, because if you are a parent at stay-at-home kids too as well, you can work, you can flex your times. You don't have to go into the office. I mean, I haven't worked in an office in many years. In fairness, I've been freelance and I've been working different things. And I tend to work remotely, and I miss certain things about an office. I miss kind of Friday, that feeling and a bit of a chatter, and it's kind of nice. And you maybe go for a drink afterwards, whatever. It was pre-babies, of course, but it's kind of nice. But I don't want to go into the office every day. I don't need to. Now, some people prefer that, but this new hybrid way of working, and I think that will benefit women, because women tend to juggle more things in life. And even a recent study showed that even when women were at home with a couple, both working full time, women still tend to do more housework than the man. And it's just, I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's because they juggle more. And actually, with COVID, it's been very hard on women in other ways, because they're at home doing their job, homeschooling the children, and then trying to do the chores afterwards. So they have 3 jobs now, 3 shifts, and apparently the men have been putting, when they write their big academic papers, the steady increase. Women's have dropped significantly because they haven't got time. They can only do so much. So COVID has not been all good for women, but it's definitely, I think, opened the eyes of some employers, and especially we're talking about blockchain coding, you know, these are things that it's nice to have a team, but you don't need to be in a team environment all the time. And that just throws up, for people who want to do it, flexibility. And that means that it also means you can be in Jakarta working for a company in Dublin or vice versa. It's that skills gaps that we can now approach, which is quite exciting.
That is very true. Like that problem, I'm pretty sure like all women that are like on the audience are like, yes, yes. Yeah, we all feel that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so as you have the broad observation on the industry, right? Can you see how is it like for a woman to be in a man-dominated industry such as blockchain? Does it prevent women to develop themselves or anything in particular in this particular industry?
I think it's not been easy. I'm trying to think now. There are very rare occasions when I've come up against a glass ceiling, but I have every so often, and I think it depends on the personality of the person. I've always been quite an outgoing person, and I've been, even as a young person, I'd be relatively confident, and not, you know, I'd be chatty. I'd mix well with people. Going into a room doesn't scare me with strangers. I'm never bothered by that. But I think if you are maybe a more retiring or shy disposition, to have to constantly go into rooms where, I don't know, it's dominated, or offices dominated by men, that's not easy, especially if you are a bit more retiring. And I know once I spoke to this person. I was at a conference in Vienna actually, and he was saying he couldn't find women to hire, and then he said we'd have to change our talk in the office. You know, I'm kind of going, really?
What?
Yeah. And I mean, two things straight out. I thought one was, is it that bad? You know, and second, I thought, well, you know, it's like, do you talk like that in front of your wife? Maybe. I mean, can you not maybe put in manners? It's like, another good example, during COVID, someone rang in a radio station. They said, the man rang in and he said, how will I get back to normal life? He said, I'm so used to slouching around in my pajamas, whatever, and I fart when I want to, you know, how can I go to an office again, right? The woman who was listening to it, she was the woman presenter, she said, you're a grown up. You know? I'm pretty sure you could modify your behavior so that it was pleasant for people around you. You know? So I think there's a lot of that. People say, oh, different. Yeah, well, you know, you're grown-ups. We're grown-ups. We can behave in a certain way that's respectful for those around us, you know, and we're not, you know, I don't know. That doesn't seem too big a thing to ask human beings to be respectful of other human beings around them.
Because so based on your observations, again, throughout the time and developments of blockchain technology, what keeps women from being a part of it?
Sometimes there is the boys club, and there's a couple of things that go on there. First of all, it's 24/7. That's very on. It's on. And if you are a mother, it's difficult to keep, because you are the primary caregiver to your child. That on is quite difficult. It's the same way women have problems getting into gaming communities, and then it's hard to put my finger on it, but there is definitely a kickback, I think, or a pushback when it comes to ideas being shared. It's not as easy, and it's hard to make that difference, because, for example, I said I'm quite outgoing, but I'm not aggressive, and I'm not I don't like fighting. I don't like being bossy. I'm not necessarily a leader per se. I like doing my thing, and I love doing my thing and supporting people, but I'm much more collaborative than I am competitive. So that can cause a problem if you're not being collaborated with, if you like, you know, and everyone's feeling very, very competitive. It can be tough. And I think that's, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe just more women getting in there, and maybe just more awareness. It's like, for example, some years ago, we never spoke about mental health. That just didn't talk about it. And now we do. We talk a lot about it. And
Yeah.
So people can say, they could say, maybe, I'm not quite sure if they do or not, but people don't go to work ringing, I'm sick because I've got the stomach bug, whatever. But they might be able to say, I've got the black dog, you know, which is like a euphemism for feeling depressed or whatever. So you might say, my mental health's not great at the moment. That tennis player who pulled out of the tennis, was the French Open, when she wouldn't, I forget her name now, sorry, when she was forced as part of her contract to give a press conference afterwards, and she said, I can't do it. I'm done. I'm on the court. I'm done. And I think she was almost fired. She was fined, and then she retired. I don't think she played Wimbledon as a result. But sometimes if we talk about it, we have more chance of saying, well, why is this a nice atmosphere to be in, or is it not a nice atmosphere to be in? Are people being listened to? And I think, I said at the start of this conversation, I did a piece, spoke a lot about being invisible at 50. A lot of men came out to me as well and spoke to me, and some of them said, well, actually, I have the same problem, so, I mean, here I say that it's more women. And it's just, ageism is alive and well in the world. And maybe that's where we need to start saying, gray hairs, I don't have some gray hairs. Gray hairs can help an organization, because chances are they've been there, done that, said it, saw it, they have witnessed it before in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, chatting, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
All right. So our audience here have several questions. So, a question. Will you share record of this meeting later? Yes. Don't worry, guys. If you guys are missing out, like the early stage of this interview, no worries, because Tech4ID will upload this later on the YouTube channel. So subscribe if you haven't. Also, what are the common job roles for women in this space? Since, as you said, it can be, it can be very hard because it's like always on, like 24/7. But are there some roles that we can get into?
Yes, the answer to that is quite straightforward. I remember I gave a talk a number of years ago, again, the same sort of topic about women in this industry, in blockchain. And people came up to me afterwards, women came up to me after, and they said, how do I get into blockchain? I mean, it sounds fascinating, exciting, all these things that are going on. I'm going, yeah, it is. And I said, how? I said, well, what do you do? I'm an accountant. I'm going, well, be an accountant in blockchain. I'm a marketeer, be a marketeer in blockchain. I mean, the blockchain, it needs all these people, it needs them all. And the best way to start finding out what opportunities are there, because until such time as the world opens up a bit and meetups begin again properly, because it's hard to do meetups online. They're not as effective. Meetups in person are great. When your country, wherever you are, if it's open up again, definitely go into meetup and find out who's doing blockchain meetups and go along and just hang out and ask staff questions. The other thing to do is, I find on LinkedIn, put blockchain in your job title, blockchain enthusiast, blockchain advocate. It doesn't have to be blockchain expert. No one's a blockchain expert, but put blockchain in there, and you'll see who people you attract. People will reach out to you then, and there's conversations will be had. But definitely, when the world opens up again, meetups are a brilliant way of just hanging out, because then you find, when you go to school and then you go to university, and what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a scientist, whatever. Very few jobs are actually like labeled like that. Most people have a variety of different jobs and a variety of different skill sets. So it's just going out there and meeting and finding out, maybe meeting someone, maybe joining a startup, maybe joining an established company. But the thing is, the more you work and the more you learn, you have so many strings to your bow. You can bring them all. You don't have to be like a marketeer or a CFO. You could be, I don't know, just a business development person. I don't know. There's lots of different things that don't have special training routes.
That's interesting. So yeah, there are a lot of gaps that we can fill in. So yeah, girls, women out there, we can start to search for it. Also, another question. What kind of skills should women develop to succeed in this men club?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I would say, first of all, your own personal stuff, be confident. You know the expression, fake it till you make it? It is true, and science has proven that if you, for example, you're going for an interview and you're nervous, more nervous than maybe you should be, they say go into the loo or whatever, before you go into the building we're going to be interviewed, do things like this. And science has proven that if you do this for like 5 minutes, sort of power gestures, apparently whatever is in your body, this hormones and stuff, I don't know the science, but people become more confident. And no more than when you go on stage to give a presentation, you do big deep breaths, because you don't want to be breathing from up here, the shallow bit, you want to be breathing the whole lineup. So it's that kind of thing. And the second thing I would say is, in order to prepare for this world, join women's groups. Join men's groups too, join mixed groups, but I'm part of quite a few women's groups. The Bigger Pie, for example, based out of London, very supportive. And that's quite nice because on occasion we share information, but also people will say, well, what do you think should be here? Or there's just, sometimes the women's experience is different from man's experience. And it's good to have other women that you can bounce ideas off. You know, you don't have to take their advice, whatever, but it's just nice to have a women's group. I'm going to say, but join men's groups, join mixed groups, join lots of groups and look for support and take help. Ask for help and take help.
It's very beautiful that I think this community is very supportive to one another. Like, I think it's beautiful. All right. So another question is that how women can contribute to this space? Any real use cases?
As an actual, let me just think now. Let me think. Well, I'm trying to think. My brain, of course, goes blank.
It's all right.
Well, I contribute as a woman because I'm a journalist and a broadcaster.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, and that's the voice thing that I have, and I love doing it. That's a real privilege for me to come on and talk to you and say what I feel, and bring the whole woman's thing with me. That's kind of important. But there are a lot of women founders and women technologists across the space, and there are a lot of women leaders. Now, sadly, during COVID, women founders, it was like 2.5% of VC money went into women founders before COVID. It dropped to 2.2 or something during COVID. So it's women founders tend to attract less money, but there are funds that are women only, that's for sure. The most important thing to remember, I think, is that studies have been done by Deloitte, Credit Nordia, McKinsey, and Credit Suisse, Nordia, and McKinsey, I get my companies right. They've all done big studies over the last 10 years about when you put a woman in a decision-making role in a company, any company, the profits go up like between 20 and 30%. Bingo, like that. So know that you are contributing as a woman, you are contributing wherever you go, and that you are making a difference. And I will come back with a whole bunch of amazing women. I mean, I spoke with Anna Stone, for example. She's with the Good Dollar Project. And that's out of Taro, and that is an ambition to create a universal basic income for everybody. And I just love, she's just really bubbly and fun and amazing. And Caroline Wen, who's with Mintbase, another co-founder of that company, into NFTs, again, very, very inclusive. There's a whole, I can't think, there's so many people. I'm like, lots of women doing amazing things. Bridget Greenwood, who runs the Bigger Pie in the UK, which is supportive of women in blockchain. Amber Gadder, who runs her own, it's a financial company, I forget exactly what it does now, but it's there's so many women out there, and they will help you, because you know they say they never look down on someone unless you're helping them up. Women, contrary to mythical opinions, women are not bitchy about it. Women do not go out of their way to be mean. Women, that is like a fallacy. Women like women, and women like to help women. Why wouldn't you? You know?
Yeah.
So I think once you kind of realize that, oh yeah, and as do men, but there's this notion that women maybe put women down. No, they don't. Not the good ones.
Yeah, and I think you are also one of the inspiration in this sense, because like you are a journalist and also broadcaster and doing your thing in your age with all the wisdom that you have gathered throughout your life. Like, wow, you're such an inspiration and a real example.
But you're very kind. I don't see myself in that way. However, I do see that I have a moral imperative to speak out. Like when I did it against the banks and the debt and people who are taking their own lives in 2014, that's wrong. And this way here, I'm going, this is such an amazing industry. It's a transformational technology. It has an opportunity to rethink things, change things. And people are doing amazing things, like, for example, in tokenizing the world and then investing in impact investments that actually make the world, we stop raping the world, we start becoming the custodians of the earth and the ground and nature. So this industry has just so much potential.
All right. Talking about potential, right? To what area do you think that blockchain developers can start reaching when it comes to answering women's needs? For example, maybe they have to cooperate with more women-dominated industries, or is there anything else that these blockchain developers can do?
Yeah. Well, I suppose women's needs tend, at the end of the day, to be human needs, and so anything, anywhere where there is injustice and inequality, typically women tend to be the pointy end of those things. So whether it's like remittances, women who are working abroad send money back to their family, you know, and then getting stung by the huge fees. There's a lot of things in this world that aren't quite right. But even down to women tend to make up the bulk of sex workers in this world, and they can't access bank accounts, and there's so many impediments put in their way because people want to eradicate prostitution, as that would be called, as opposed to assisting sex workers, which is a very different thing altogether. So there's quite a few sort of projects aimed at helping women who are on the fringes, and women often tend to be on the fringes, and they're trying to support maybe their families or their loved ones, and yeah, helping wherever there's
That,
inequality. Let's try to bring some equality.
that is a very interesting thing to mention, honestly. So, what is the correlation between blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and why blockchain needs crypto to exist? Could we have a future with blockchain but no crypto?
Not really, I don't think, because blockchain is the technology. It's the one that allows us, for example, create the NFTs because they're unique digital assets when they're on the blockchain, and they can be unique. But cryptocurrency is just why it's so exciting. It's not just that it gets rid of the middleman, and we know that the financial institutions control the world. They control politics, they control so much, and not in a good way, not in a good way at all. So if we could take them out of the picture, or make them just behave themselves better, happy days. But also, here's an interesting idea. What is money? Money is thing we exchange money. So if I have a cow and you have a sheep and we do a swap, it's grand, but it's unlikely that our swaps are going to be matched. So we have to maybe, that's why money came into being, because it's very hard, do you want my cow or do you want my horse? So I don't, whatever, it's hard to match up barter like that. So money is a nice sort of equalizer in the middle. But the nice thing about cryptocurrencies, this is why I don't want them to go away, is that a lot of the time they're based on passion. So for example, you have Dogecoin, mad Dogecoin for tipping, and it sent the boys off to the Jamaican boys off to the winter bobsleigh Olympics and Olympics. That's also just a passion thing, and how fun that is. And then let's say you were part of a community that were involved with sustainability of some kind, and you exchanged tokens in this space to reward people who did good things, curated the earth, where recycling. So it's you're actually part of your living will come from your passion as well. So cryptocurrency, I'm not interested in the FOMO. I'm not interested in to the moon, although it's nice to think that one could make money. That's always nice, but it's not the thing that drives people, and that's too exhausting. Who could be what? Oh, not a day trader, not a trader at all. But a lot of those products, they're all based on passion. So, and it's different ways to exchange value. And I think they'll only become more prevalent over time.
Okay, so we are near to our end of time. But all right, so how do you propose to include more women into the tech world?
How do I propose? Well, the one thing that I can do is talk. And I'm Irish, so we're very good at talking, as you can tell. And it's I tend to be that bore. Not that I've been out much recently, obviously with lockdown. But if you ask me how I am, I'll say, "Do you know about blockchain?" So I'll try and spread the word and the word about the goodness of it. So for me personally, it's writing about it and talking about it. And my particular love when I do my writing in this space, I love founder interviews, and I love founders, and that can be men or women, doesn't really matter, but who've got real passion and vision for the project. And for me to explain that in terms that are easy to understand and enjoyable, I think that's my role. That's I'm taking that role, and I'm loving it.
We're so happy that you're taking that role. All right. So the last question, right? What are your hopes for women out there, and also like the development of technology and also blockchain industry?
I would like to see, it goes back to this again, a more fair society. Now, I recognize I come from a comparably wealthy country. Ireland, we have a welfare state, we do have homeless people, we do have other problems, but it's a relatively safe country, and I do get that, right? But there's still huge inequalities here, and across the rest of the world, there's even more inequalities. And it's just, I think technology is the lever. The lever of technology is a thing that can change that, and can make people think differently about things. And also, I'm nothing against wealth, but how many cars can you drive? How many houses can you live in? So the idea is that I think that people should, a successful life is your happiness, it's your relationships. Of course, we all want to be able to have food on the table, feed our kids, and go out to dinner, whatever it is. We have our things we need to do. I get all that. But maybe if we stopped and said, well, what is the mark of a successful person? Is someone who, yeah, enjoys their life, but who helps other people. And if we kind of got into that way of thinking, and technology is a great way of, because I can do one good here in my village where I live in rural Ireland, but with technology, if I do one good, I can do it globally. So technology is a way of exploding that goodness, if you like. And so, yeah, my vision is that we can maybe get back to becoming more equal. I think we've kind of missed the road a bit recently, and that would be a joy.
Thank you so much for that. All right. So I think we still have more questions coming. Hold on. Since apparently the hype for you today is, wow, it's amazing.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Okay, hold on. Let me try to read them. Okay. Okay. Are there some pointers that you can give to our audience regarding what do we have to be careful of if we want to start using or even developing blockchain?
Careful. Do you think they mean more about cryptocurrencies and stuff like that? Is that because blockchain is technology?
Yeah.
Maybe the one thing I always say is it's two things. I'm not a trader. I have no financial advice whatsoever to give. I'd probably lose it all if I tried it. If people want to invest in cryptocurrencies, I think it's probably a better investment than many other items you can do it in, but only invest that which you can afford to lose. So, again, I wouldn't, well, I don't trade. I don't do that. Now, if you have, people say, how do I get involved? Do you have $50 spare a month? Maybe put that into Bitcoin. Because the nice thing, obviously, you can buy, percentages, of Bitcoin. So it's 0.000001, whatever. So maybe do that. But I wouldn't, and then also maybe try and get a job with the blockchain company. That's kind of fun. And maybe you could earn some of your money in the crypto, which would be kind of fun too as well. Although I don't know how we figure out the tax implications. That's very complicated.
Indeed. Also, there's another question. So based on your opinion, how blockchain is transforming the future of financial services infrastructure? Does blockchain technology really have a strong outlook in the future? What do you think?
Oh, huge. I mean, look at DeFi, decentralized finance, which is the next step up. And it's 50 billion worth of TVL, the total locked, the wrong words, whatever. There's 50 billions worth, the market cap for DeFi is 50 billion. Massive, from basically nothing a year and a half ago. And why it's so nice, and it's a bit crazy, it's a bit scary, it's up and down, whatever, but it's people working together without intermediaries, using smart contracts, earning money, investing in things, providing liquidity, and then raising money, borrowing against. I mean, people can borrow now by just locking in their own collateral, maybe their own coins. Maybe they've got some Ethereum or some Bitcoin, or they could lock it in, not spend their crypto, and then get a loan based on it. And they don't have to do all the paperwork, to say who their grandmother was and how much they earn and where they live. And what, they can just, here's my collateral, let me take my loan, and you agree to the terms. So yeah, it's fundamentally reimagining how we look at finance.
So yeah, I think with all that, like women can really have a lot to offer, and we can have like a lot to bring to the industry and also to the blockchain, not only like a small scope of industry, but since it's like still growing, I think we can still get there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
also, based on your opinion too, can we expect to see more women specialized on that technology sector in the near future?
I think so. I think so. It's like I was looking earlier, Caitlin Long from Wyoming, if I get her name right, Elizabeth Stark from Lightning Network, and Hester Pierce, who is the SEC commissioner, and she's called Crypto Mum. Once people start seeing, once people start seeing women in these roles, they go, "Oh, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that." So, and it's up to all of us to, you, me, everybody, the women. And sometimes when we go to events, when events open up again, there are women as well as men in the crowds, not just loads and loads of young men going, "Oh, FOMO, FOMO," or Lambo, the moon.
That is really true. So yeah, if I may add, right? So I really love this singer called Ariana Grande.
Oh yes, yeah.
One of her song lyrics is that it's like more of a intro lyrics. It says, "One small step for women means like a giant step for womankind." So I think that's really also like one of the lyrics that can also give us like inspiration of in this case too, right? So yeah.
True. I mean, it is important. It really is important to reach out to the women and say, "Come in. It's friendly. You can do good here. You can have fun here. You can change the world here." It's like it's a very and whatever your skill sets are, bring them. Whether you're a coder or a HR person, doesn't matter. Bring your skills and join this movement.
Absolutely. All right, Ms. Jillian, do you have any like last words? That sounds wrong. Do you have anything that you want to express or give to the audience?
Well, I do know that when I finished all my electioneering and my activism, all the rest of it, I really thought my life was over. I thought that's it. And then 4 or 5 years ago, I discovered blockchain and I went, whoa, this is exciting. So I can just say to people, get involved with this industry. It is very, very, it's fast. It's crazy. We've been through crypto winter, not so much fun as well, but it's just, I've never been so stimulated in all my life and challenged and intrigued and inspired. And it's a roller coaster. And I've loved it, I must say. So thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. And thank you for the world, the universe, for letting me into this space and for discovering this space before I went off into that dark corner and stayed there all quiet.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Ms. Jillian Godsil. We are very, very happy that you're here. Obviously, the audience also love you, that we have a lot of
that's so kind.
Coming up.
I can't see it, but I send my thanks to everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. So, Ms. Jillian, we would love to ask you to say our tagline. So it's Tech for ID, technology for Indonesia, technology for everyone. Please, ma'am.
Okay. Tech for ID, technology for Indonesia, technology for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Jillian Godsil. All right, then. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And don't worry if you guys miss out. Again, Tech for ID will upload this interview into their YouTube channel. So if you guys have not subscribed, just subscribe right now. And also, if you guys want to know more about Ms. Jillian Godsil, just reach her out. when can people? All right, LinkedIn.
I think it's the easiest thing. And say you saw me on here, whatever, so it'll make sense. But LinkedIn is the easiest path. But thank you so much for allowing me rant on for the last hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I think this has been a very, very good, inspiring, and also we learned a lot from this talk. So yeah, we wish you health and abundance, love and light, everything. So yeah,
thank you. Thank you. You're a fantastic host. Very, very, very charming and very kind, very gracious. Thank you indeed.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.